Episode 7. The man rolled his eyes. It's true. Now you have to do damage control. He instructed Charlotte with a glower and a meaningful look at me. At least you're not dating a loser musician, he added, sighing. I didn't know whether to take that as a compliment or a subtle dig. Charlotte merely nodded, accustomed to her grandfather's moods. Grandfather, Charlotte said suddenly, does this still affect my chances to take over the company? He looked at her with a great degree of annoyance. Hmmph, he muttered, is that all you can think about at that damn company? Are you marrying that man to get your greedy claws into it? He pointed at me. Charlotte shook her head. No. I'm in love with Johnathon, she said hastily, a little too hastily for my liking. The grandfather looked unconvinced. The terms are as before, he said snidely. It's not just the first to get married, but the first to give me an heir that will take over the company. Though the way you are going, I wouldn't be surprised if that goes in reverse order, he muttered under his breath. John, Karen said in a shocked tone. It's true, the grandfather growled. Just so you know, a baby born out of wedlock will not inherit anything and neither will its mother, he snapped at Charlotte, who quickly nodded, blushing. I assure you that won't happen, I said confidently. Good. Because I'm not one to be taken in by lies. Charlotte here will be disowned if she even tries it, the grandfather said, slamming the newspaper down on the table with a ferocious scowl. I glanced at Charlotte, who turned her head away and avoided my eyes. The grandfather cleared his throat. Now as for damage control, he said tersely, plunking himself down in his seat and regarding the two of us. You're going to send out those divorce papers, he said coldly, and then, there is going to be an announcement made about the two of you getting engaged. First, you are going to be seen getting the ring. He paused. You will spare no expense, he added, and the media will no doubt catch wind of you ring shopping. You will play the part of a loving couple, he instructed. This didn't seem too hard. Charlotte's eyes were gleaming. Oh, I can't wait until I see that bitch's face when she gets served the divorce papers, she said with a laugh and a flip of her hair. Her grandfather glared at her. You will not go near her. You are to have nothing to do with her. The woman is entitled to move on with her life, and the more time you spend involving yourself in her affairs, the more the media will continue to hash this out. Stop being so petty. Charlotte looked irritable. I cut in and took her hand, rubbing it gently as she relaxed. Don't worry about it, darling, I said as the grandfather listened. You're the only one that I want, and that's all that matters. Flair's nothing and nobody. You shouldn't want to be involved with somebody of such a lower status than you. Finally, somebody that is speaking sense, her grandfather said agreeably. I am going to look into Flair Rourke's background and see if there is anything that can cause even more harm to our reputation. Is there anything we should know about? He asked, turning to stare me in the face. I laughed. Nothing. Flair is as boring as they come, I told him honestly. I looked into her background before we got married. She comes from a simple home, works as a yoga instructor, and has limited funds. All she knows how to do is work and look after the household. She won't give us any trouble, I assured him lightly, amused at the thought of Flair trying to do such a thing. Sure, she might have hurt Charlotte last night, but I was certain that was a once-off, brought about by her emotions rather than anything else. She was no match against the DeLucas, and she would be silly for even trying to stand against them. You better be right, the grandfather said, standing back up and beginning to turn, because I don't have to tell you what's at stake if this all goes pear-shaped. Charlotte. Grayson is also entitled to the company, he reminded her, and just like that, I saw a vicious expression on her face. That company is mine. I am never going to let that bastard take it from me. He's always wanted what he cannot have. This time, I'm going to get what's owed me. Grayson can go to hell for all I care, she said passionately while her mother nodded in agreement next to her. Her grandfather chuckled. Be that as it may, Grayson always manages to surprise me. For a man that has very little to do with the family name, He might just decide he wants this company after all. I saw Charlotte bite down on her lip. Well, the son of a bitch isn't getting it, she hissed to me. He resents the family name, so he doesn't deserve to have it. I wondered what this Grayson was like and why his name instantly caused not only Charlotte to look angry, but her mother as well. Such a reaction to one name could only spell trouble in the future. I never knew how much trouble until I was fully in the thick of things. Grayson's point of view. I was studying some legal documents with a heavy frown when my personal assistant Timothy came walking in, carrying some coffee and a newspaper folded underneath his arm. "Good morning, Grayson," he greeted me, placing the coffee down in front of me carefully. I inhaled its sweet aroma and put my documents aside, taking an appreciative sip of the scalding hot liquid and enjoying the caffeine fix, my personal assistant's eyes twinkling as he adjusted his spectacles. "Good morning, Timothy. I have the legal documents that you faxed to my home last night, and I believe that I have an appointment with Miss Claudette later this afternoon, involving a wrongful eviction claim." "Correct," Timothy confirmed. "I don't believe you'll have any issues with that case. It seems to be pretty up and dried. The landlord is throwing his weight around, but the law is clearly on Miss Claudette's side, as you've no doubt already determined," he said as I grunted and gave a nod. If there was anything I hated more, it was arrogant, wealthy men who thought they could use their money to grant them special privileges or make them believe they didn't have to adhere to the laws. I would enjoy taking down this landlord who had a tendency to evict its tenants for the simplest of breaches, none of which were legal, while threatening them with expensive lawyers if they threatened to stand up against him. "The case will be over within an hour," I said with nonchalance. "The landlord is all talk and bluster." Timothy just chuckled. "Well, when the other lawyer sees he's going up against Grayson Oakes, the mighty defense lawyer, he might just turn tail and run," he suggested as I gave him a devilish grin, "and save us the trouble of even going to court." "Not likely," I growled. "He'll want his paycheck, just like any other lawyer working for a wealthy businessman, whether he wins or loses." I nodded towards the paper that remained firmly folded beneath Timothy's arm. "What's with the paper, Timothy? Is there something in there you don't wish me to see?" I drawled, raising a brow. "Oh, this," Timothy said, glancing down at his arm. "Well, actually, the thing is." He sighed and then untucked the paper from his arm and smoothly slid it over to me. I grabbed it and spread it over my desk with disinterest, my eyebrows raising as I took in the front page. "Spoilt heiress has affair with married man gets slapped by wronged woman." Featured prominently on the front page was a picture of none other than Charlotte DeLuca, my half-sister, getting slapped by another woman. I studied the other woman's profile, taking in her delicate features, the stunning mixed hues of brown and blonde in her hair, the blazing light in her eyes, and her porcelain-like complexion, and my chest tightened slightly. The other woman was beautiful. Not in a supermodel kind of way, but in a unique, down-to-earth way that called to me. I glanced at Charlotte, noting that she was dressed in designer clothing and heavily made up as usual, a stark contrast to the woman who had slapped her. Full story is available on shelfofnovels.com. Click the link in the comment section to get it free.